the point of it is, and especially with graduation and the other things you were talking about, is everybody's special.
Mhm.
Everybody deserves to be treated special on different occasions or just on different days. Everybody needs that. A child, an adult, a foster person, an orphan, anybody, just treating people special.
Hello and welcome to Get Yourself Optimized. I'm your host, Stephan Spencer. It is my pleasure and honor to have with me today and with us Marge Cater, who is my foster mother. I had the miraculous gift of being able to live with her for a few years in my childhood when I was a foster child. I don't talk about this much. I did have some TV appearances about being a foster kid, and that was some years ago, like maybe 5, 6 years ago. And then I really didn't speak much about it since. But this was a pivotal part of my life. Marge has had other foster kids too. She's an expert on the foster care system, and I'm sure you're going to enjoy listening to this episode, understanding more of my history and how the foster care experience helped shape me in a very positive way, which is something you may not have experienced or heard before. Usually, the foster care system is a much maligned system, and not for no reason, of course, but in this case, it was a very positive experience, though I didn't really always feel that at the time that I went through it. So this is Marge. Marge,
Hello.
if you can maybe start by sharing what your motivation was to become a foster mother and what, how this all kind of unfolded for you.
Okay. Well, I was a teacher, and at the time I was teaching fourth grade, and had a student that I needed to report to Child Services Board for parental abuse, and I was just so overwhelmed by that because she was a sweet girl and just pleasant, and I really enjoyed her in my class, and I just felt really horrible to do that, but she came in bruised. It was just a bad situation for her, and they removed her from the home. And so I talked with authorities. I talked with the people at that time and said, "I'll take her. Let me have her." And I'd gladly take her and have her in my house, get her to school daily, and smooth over those edges. And of course, I hadn't gone through the training. I didn't have the certification. I didn't have this. I didn't have that. And so I couldn't do that for this particular girl and her brother. So that really affected me. Prior to that, my husband and I had been talking about either adopting or foster caring, but it had just been talked to that point. Nothing obviously serious, and this got us over the edge. Okay, there are a lot of good kids that are out there that need good homes, and we can provide that. And so we went through the training and what it took to be certified and became foster parents.
Yeah, amazing. So, what was the first foster child like? How long did it go? What happened? Why did you end up moving on to another child at some point? Like, how did this all transpire?
Well, it was the system was broken in Toledo, and so the foster child we had was a beautiful child. She was fun. She was bubbly. We enjoyed her, but she wasn't getting the services that were supposed to be given to her by the system. She didn't get clothing. She didn't get winter boots. She didn't get a winter coat. The caseworker didn't come out to visit like she was supposed to, And finally, the girl didn't get a Christmas gift from her mother, although the caseworker had it. And it took until March for the caseworker to bring out a Christmas gift. So things were just, we supplied the clothes, we supplied the boots, my family was very generous at Christmas time, and everybody just kind of pitched in and made up for those things that the foster care system was not providing. So at the end, she was adopted with her SIB group by a family out of county, which had no bearing on us contacting a lawyer and going to court with Children's Services Board. This caseworker wasn't doing her job. Her supervisor wasn't doing his job to get her to do her job. The system wasn't working for this child, and we assumed other children. This wasn't an individual case.
Wow. So you took the system, the foster care system in Toledo, Ohio to court.
To court, right. And we know that the caseworkers are overbooked. They have too many kids to do, too many things that they're responsible for. But yet she wasn't being responsible for anything with this particular child, and she was being abused by the system. She was being, she wasn't being taken care of.
Yeah.
So yes, as a teacher, I knew what was expected. I knew what they were supposed to be doing, and I knew that something had to be done to stop it. And that's what we did. We took them all the way to court and had our day in court, which there was, I don't even really remember. I'm sure it was just a slap on the wrist for the caseworker and her supervisor. But at that same time, they got a new director, and that turned things around. A day in court, I don't think turned things around, but they knew that they were remiss and that they needed to make major changes, and they got a new top dog. They had a new director.
Well, my understanding of how the upper worlds, heavens work is that you do your 2% that seems to make not much difference. And then the creator handles the other 98%.
Yeah.
So if we don't do that 2%, we just look and say, wow, that's really tragic. What a shame. And we don't take action. Then the other 98% doesn't get done. And then we see in our life review when we pass, like, oh, yeah, I really should have stepped up. Wow. Yeah. So good for you. Kudos to you for taking that initiative. I'm sure that was pretty unusual for a parent to take the foster care system to court.
They needed it.
Yeah. So what happened with the kind of the next foster child and the next? Well, you've had a few foster children over the years, including me. Where did I sit in the list here? And
well, our next one was a girl whose her mother was in prison, in jail for a period of time, and she had been in and out of foster care previously. The family was unstable, and so we had her until her mother was out of jail, and then she was back with her mother. And this foster daughter kept in touch with us. She was still in Toledo. She knew where she called. She was just one of those gregarious kinds of kids that crawled into your heart and just never left. And so she went back to her home, and it was a rocky situation. And she came back to us several different times after, as things kind of melted down at home.
So you were a safe haven for her.
We were. And that's what I told her. I said, no matter, we were just taking one child at a time. And I said, no matter who we have in our house, you are always, always welcomed. And yeah, she came back when we had other foster children.
Yeah. So why only one foster child at a time?
Well, because they come with a few needs. I worked, my husband worked, so we had 2 extra bedrooms, but I figured one at a time. They come you came with baggage. Everybody has baggage, and in order to better deal with that baggage, or to better help the child, for me, it needed to be one child at a time.
Yeah. So let's talk about my baggage.
So let's see. Your grandfather was ill and in the process ultimately of passing away.
Yeah.
And so you
And that
had.
was where I was living, was with my grandfather. So he's the one who called Children's Services. Yeah.
Mhm.
Which surprised me. I had no idea that that was in the works. And I felt very alienated and unwanted because of that. I mean, in retrospect, of course, everything is divinely orchestrated. This was all meant to be. But at the time, I felt like nobody wanted me,
Yeah, yeah.
especially my family.
And you were in high school.
Yeah.
And that's the most volatile time in your life, when things are up and down anyway, and being wanted is so terribly important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was a good kid, but even being a good kid, I would test your test your metal,
Well,
test the boundaries.
yeah, you were human. You were a kid. So, yeah. And you were really resentful. You were really at odds with the whole system and the whole process. And a number of times would bicycle back to your grandfather's apartment and be told you needed to come back.
I forgot about that. I do remember bicycling in the middle of the night to a girlfriend's house,
Oh, yeah.
and I'd never been tested in the way that you tested me, or like, yeah, the boundaries that you put up. And I remember one time I snuck back in, and it was like 6 in the morning, or I thought, gosh, I hope she's not awake yet. And then there was a policeman waiting for me.
Yes. Well, the first time you had gone with another friend, and the friend's mother called and said, "Are the boys there?" And it was like 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning. And I said, "Sure, well, I think Stefan's home." And I went and checked, and no Stefan. So, so by regulation, by the systems doing that, if the child doesn't show up or is missing, you've got to report that immediately, because
Uh,
abuse, or kidnapping, or having a good time. uh, anyway, so I there was, my hands were tied. The other mother was frantic. The two boys were together, which was maybe good, maybe not good. And so I had to call CSB. I had to call Children's Services Board. And so that's when the policeman got there before you did.
yeah, well, I had no idea that that was the reason. That, like, I thought, Stefan's going to learn a lesson here
Yeah,
about sneaking out.
I had to do that.
Yeah.
In other cases where other foster kids, they were supposed to go home with for a weekend visit with a parent, and if they weren't brought back at the time that was planned, and you would always give them a little extra hour or whatever, then you were supposed to call Children's Services, because they were not following the contract or the plan. So it wasn't just you in that situation, but that was a safeguard for everybody to report a missing child.
Interesting.
So, did that stop you from going out at night?
It made me a little more reticent, but it certainly it was memorable. Let's put it that way. I still remember it.
Well, there was another time where you laid a pillow in bed.
Oh
And
my goodness. I don't remember that either, but that's funny.
well, so that had happened. And then there was another time where you left a message on the kitchen counter saying that you were home, had been home, but you needed to go out in early morning, Stephan up and awake and early out. That was suspicious. And don't call the police. So it wasn't the only time that you decided that, the bedroom wasn't your place for that night.
Oh wow, that's
Or
funny.
part of the night anyway.
Yeah, funny. I remember, like, thinking back to those years, you just don't have the long-term part of your brain developed, not until like age 25. And it was super reckless of me to take a bicycle at, let's say, 1 in the morning to spend the night with my girlfriend at the time, and go across really sketchy parts of town,
Yes.
really sketchy, where there was no traffic and just a kid
Anything
on a
could have happened.
bicycle,
Yeah.
very reckless. So yeah, and then sneaking back in at 5 in the morning, thinking I'm gonna, get away with it. So, anyways, this was an important kind of milestone, or kind of memory in my mind, because it helped me. I hated it at the time. It helped me to understand that there are boundaries,
Hmm.
and I was not given boundaries in the past. So I had lived with either my grandfather or my mother, neither of whom were very good at providing structure and stability. And so I would do stuff like all summer long, stay up all night coding, writing in basic or even assembly language and stuff, and running a bulletin board system, BBS, on my mother's phone line, and then meeting up with friends who would trade pirated software and stuff as a 13-year-old. Very risky stuff. I didn't
Yes.
know the backgrounds of these people I was meeting with, and some were older,
Hmm.
not just kids my
And this
age.
was before CSB.
Yeah, this was before I entered the system.
Yes.
But I remember feeling a lot of resentment for the system, that they gave these tiny little vouchers of money to spend for clothing for an entire season or half year, and I just thought, this is like for 2 outfits. Like, I can't wear 2 outfits all long. I was very resentful
Yeah.
about that.
And another part of the process with you, I remember, was you had been bacheloring. Your grandfather was a bachelor, essentially, and so doing laundry and preparing meals and things like that with him were not non-existent.
Non-existent. Yeah, I'd be on my own. I'd have to figure out what to eat, and I didn't know how to cook. I didn't know anything, so I would eat SpaghettiOs out of a can, or just the most terrible processed food. That just, I saw Burger King as a treat, and looking back on that, like, wow, that is like absolute poison.
So setting up that structure of here's mealtime, here's the food, this is what we're eating, and then gradually we move to preparing. Help me prepare this meal. Help prepare one item with a meal, and then gradually help prepare one meal a week, and to be responsible. Okay, as you were growing and older and more responsible, what are the ingredients in that meal? What do we need to get at the grocery? Doing that planning for meal preparation.
Yeah, yeah. I really learned a lot about cooking and taking care of myself
Mhm.
from that I had never learned before.
Right. One of the other humorous things now was you were really paranoid about some of your clothes, and that I would launder them wrong. So that set up an immediate way of, okay, here's the washing machine, here's the dryer, here's the soap. You're in charge of your own laundry, not me. I was able to remove myself from that whole dilemma of ruining a sweater,
That's
and I
funny.
gave it to you to
I
ruin.
don't remember that, but I do. I'm very particular, even to this day, about how the clothes are laundered. I don't. Most of my clothes do not go into the dryer.
Hmm.
95% of my stuff does not go into the dryer. It gets line dried, and it lasts a lot longer and it looks better. But yeah, I guess I had that OCD back then too.
Yeah. So it was just those life and learning skills that when you grow up in a family and give and take, you come by that, and you hadn't had that.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah, and then I went off to college. So you ended up with another foster child,
Yes.
and the foster child. I mean, I don't know if it's typical that a foster parent keeps in touch years, decades later, but it's pretty awesome that I'm in my 50s now, and we see each other
Yeah.
regularly, and you're a huge part of my life. Your family. You're a
Yes.
family.
And that's the way with any amount of time that a foster chair and child is in your house, they're in your heart and they're in your heart forever. And I wait for the foster child to get in touch. They were all older. They were sixth grade and up. So they had the ability, if they wanted, to contact me. So this particular foster daughter got adopted, and her adoptive family welcomed me into their family. Um, the foster daughter called and was in contact, and the family knew, does do your parents know it? And yes, and then I was invited over for picnics and birthdays and occasions like that. So that was a situation where even through adoption, I was part of the
Yeah.
extended family.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And she still keeps in touch.
Yes, still do.
Yeah, super cool. So, what are some of the things that our listener would want to know about being a foster parent, or about how they could help with this system that tries to assist but sometimes is dysfunctional in doing so? How can they play a part, even if they're not really interested in fostering or adopting, but they just want to be a support somehow?
To reach out. Okay, let's see, there are different kinds of foster families. There are foster families that do emergency cases where the child is brought to your home for a couple of days before placement. There are foster families that will help the foster family get the child off to school. Like I worked. And so when I had younger foster children, I needed another foster family that I could drop my child off. She could have, or he, not he, because he didn't need to, but she could have breakfast and get to school on time. So you can foster that way where the child's not really living in your house, that you're being supportive to another foster family in getting the child off to school. So, and I also used that particular family several times in the afternoon when I couldn't get home from school right away. It was set up through Children's Services Board that I could use them that way.
Yeah.
So there are a variety of ways of foster care. You can do respite care for foster families. With one child, they didn't need that. We just took the child on vacation with us. So, but in other circumstances, you might need respite care. So there's different ways of fostering.
Yeah. And then there's also just volunteering or donating. There are organizations that help foster
Yes.
kids and help with getting foster kids into adoption. There's Dave Thomas Foundation for adoption. There's Together We Rise. Well, it's rebranded now as Foster Love. Yeah, some various organizations that you could donate to and that you can volunteer and help out. They will give nice kind of care packages
Yes.
and luggage to the child, so they don't have to use a trash bag, which is
Yes.
typical. Here's a trash bag, fill it up with your stuff, and then
Yeah.
we're going to move on to the next foster house. It's really jarring.
Yes.
That never happened to me, thankfully, but it happens a lot.
It does, unfortunately. Yes, and provide Christmas presents, birthday presents. You can donate money or gifts at those times of year for the kids, and so they receive a present from us and from the system. But it's nice to have multiple gifts on your birthday.
Yeah, for sure. So, what would be like a kind of a magic moment from my childhood, our experience together, that just pops in your head? Something that was just like, wow, this is really beautiful.
Oh, there are a number of them. One I can remember, a conversation that I think was a changing point for you when we were in the dining. I can just see us standing in the dining room talking, and you basically asked, well, why are you taking me, and why are you doing this? And and I told my story, and there was something in that resonated with you, and that was a turning point in our relationship.
Mm.
Me opening up to you and letting you know that it's heartfelt.
Mm. Yeah.
So that was one. But when you went off to school too, a lot of kids go off to school and they come back with their laundry, and you did that. You never, I call you my foster child that never left. Others went back home, they were adopted, things happened to them, but you never left. You went off to school, and you came with your laundry. You were back. It was close. You were an hour away. That helped also. But then you got married, and the kids came back. Your wife came back. The kids came back. You just kept coming back,
Mm.
and that was really special.
Yeah, for me too. For me too. One magic moment for me is you made a big to do of my high school
Mm-hmm.
graduation, and it felt really like I was being held. That was
Yeah.
really beautiful.
Well, it's important. Those are highlights in anybody's life, whether you're adopted or are in foster care or anything. A graduation is great, and you were an excellent student. You were going on. You were over the moon. You had your life planned, and you had it by the tail, and you had to have a graduation. Everybody has to have a graduation.
Yeah, but you really gave it care and attention, and I felt that. That was really
Thank
special. Yeah,
you.
and also the way that you welcomed my biological mother in
Yeah.
and made her feel welcome and normal and just part of the family, and like she loved you. Yeah, was really really grateful for you.
Yes. Yeah. It wasn't her personal undoing. She had no control over where she was in her life.
Yeah, she didn't have the life skills to
No.
get through life on her own, even barely, and certainly not to be able to care for a child.
Yes. So she was welcomed at holidays and different dinners. Yes.
Yeah, all year looked forward to coming for Thanksgiving. All you can eat. It was really good food, and she was
Yes.
talking about it for months
Yeah.
before and then after too.
Yeah.
Really, really special. So, what would be like some little last wisdom nugget that you want to share with our listener and our viewer about any of this? Any of, like, it doesn't have to be about foster care or anything. It doesn't have to be about parenting. Just be something that is just near and dear to your heart, something special, some sort of insight or epiphany that you got.
Well, I think the point of it is, and especially with graduation and the other things you were talking about, is everybody's special.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody deserves to be treated special on different occasions or just on different days. Everybody needs that. A child, an adult, a foster person, an orphan, anybody, just treating people special. That they're one of a kind. That they're important.
We are all special.
Mm-hmm.
We're all equally important, but we're all special. And I remember there's a book that actually I got you a copy of called The Little Soul in the Sun.
Mm-hmm.
And it's talking about how it's by Neil Donald Walsh, who wrote Conversations with God. And there's this whole kind of thread in that book, in that beautiful little children's book about we are all special, and being of the light and being special in a particular way is something that we want to do. We want to earn that. We want to choose that. We want to be that. We want to be the light in the way of being special in a forgiving way, or uh, in a compassionate way, or in an inspiring way. And so we get these opportunities, these life experiences that we signed up for before we incarnate to be the light in that special way. And we are all special.
And with this, I received so much more from each foster child. They were so giving and so rewarding. So I feel that I gained a lot from each experience.
Yeah, yeah. And of course, each of us did too. Like, it's magic, absolute magic. So I don't know if this inspires you to become a foster parent or to donate or volunteer or just tell somebody something that will help light up their day. Whatever you're inspired to do is it's all perfect. There's no expectations here. There's no pressure. We love you. Make it a great week. Reveal some light in the world, and we'll catch you in the next episode. I'm Stephan Spencer, and this is Marge
Marge
Cater.
Cater.
Have a great week.
Thank you.